Well, Matt, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series. It's so good to have you here, someone that I can actually engage in sports analogies with.
Thanks, Mark. It's so great to be with you, and a real pleasure and honor to be on your show today. Thanks for having me.
No, it's going to be a pleasure. As we say, the best place to start is to, and I really have to tell this more to men than women, briefly introduce yourself. Don't tell me your title or your business. Tell me about who are you, where you from originally, where you are now, a little bit about your family, your dog,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and maybe something you've never told anybody that you want to tell the world now.
Well, Matthew Mitchell, and I was born and raised in East Central Mississippi, a little town, Louisville, Mississippi, that's spelled just like Louisville, Kentucky. I youngest of four brothers and had great parents, and we can talk about them today. They're huge influences on my life. Have spent the first part of my career in athletics, coaching and teaching, and finished that part of my career the last 13 years, the head coach for women's basketball at University of Kentucky, where my wife Jenna and I still live. I have three daughters, Lacey, Sailor, and Presley, and one
Nice.
dog, Blondie. And I don't know if this is
Hold it a second. Do you know they all end in Lee?
they do, don't they?
Cecily, Chesley, and
Lacey,
Blondie.
Sailor, Presley, Blondie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Is that on purpose?
that was not on purpose. That you just told me something that I've never heard before. But I we still live here in Lexington, Kentucky, and just love being. This is a remarkable place. The bluegrass and lots of horses and bourbon and uh, beautiful countryside. And so love being here. And something that I have told many people, but I'll tell you, I I have dreams of being a professional golfer, but they will remain a dream because I love golf, and that looks like it would be so much fun to hit the ball like those guys and gals do, the pros. But really enjoy golf in my free time.
Well, that's okay. But a year ago, I gave up my dream to be a professional hockey player. A little bit late, but it was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
so why not? Why not? No, that sounds fantastic. And I've been to Louisville, as they say, and
Yep.
I've even been to Paducah, actually.
Yeah. Out in the western part of the state. Yep.
Yeah. How many people say that?
Right. Exactly.
So you mentioned daughters and whatnot. What were you like as a kid or a teenager? Were you organizing? Were you coaching back then even? Or did you do the lemonade stand or sports music? What were you about?
What a lot of imagination, Mark, because I lived in rural Mississippi. We lived out in the country. We were on a piece of land and in a little house that my mom had been born in, and her dad had grown up. So many generations of my mom's side had been in this little piece of land out in the middle of the country,
Wow.
about 7 miles from town, that might as well have been 70 miles from anywhere when you're a kid, and no mobility. So I had three older brothers that were the nearest one in age was 4 years, so it was quite a gap, 4, 5, and 6 years older. So I spent a ton of time, Mark, on my own, which led to a lot of imagination. And so if I did set up a lemonade stand, it would be for imaginary customers, but I was constantly playing sports. So I loved baseball, so I'd play these imaginary games in my head, and run around the yard. And football, the same way. Basketball, could shoot that. It's a good solitary sport. But I was obsessed with sports. Really enjoyed that. Enjoyed the outdoors. We were all in Boy Scouts, and was so fortunate as a really young kid to be in a really dynamic Boy Scout troop that learned a lot there, a lot about leadership,
Yeah.
uh, and so very active. And so it would be a real treat to get to go into town. My grandmother lived there, and she was a baseball fanatic. So at the time,
Oh,
WTBS came out with a Superstation, and WGN out of Chicago. So uh, the Cubs didn't have lights on the field, so we'd watch the Cubs at home in the afternoon, and then we'd watch the Braves at night. And I loved those times with my grandmother, and so it was a really fun childhood full of sports and adventure outdoors.
But that sounds fantastic. How we used to be outdoors so much more, and
Yeah,
and imagining the games. We had to imagine a lot of stuff, right, back then,
yeah.
and everything. And I think that's one good thing about the space program coming back is that imagination has started again, which is really good. Had you ever heard of the game? I don't know if we ever talked about this called Stratomatic baseball.
I I haven't.
This game we played when we were kids that had all the players on cards and all sorts of statistics and everything, and you had to strategize in this board game how
Oh
to play
wow.
together. It was super popular, and I heard one of the ESPN guys say it recently, saying, "Remember Stratomatic? We used to play that," and it's iconic. If you ever get a chance to look it up as a baseball fan, if you will, it was super cool. Let me move a little bit further. Your education journey, I guess, if you will,
Yep.
went on to get a marketing degree at Mississippi State.
Yep.
I remember we always had to spell that in my SSIS, what were you envisioning back then?
Well, it's interesting. I got married at 18. We had a baby on the way that was unexpected, and she's turned out to be a wonderful person. And so I'm so happy that it happened, but it really derailed my athletic playing career in college. And so I think I got a little off track, trying to maybe recapture some level of success early in my career. So as I went into business at Mississippi State, I was thinking about one thing and one thing only: trying to make money.
Right.
And I was really kind of obsessed with being financially successful. And so I was thinking when I was in marketing, to be real frank with you, Mark, because it wasn't real strenuous. I was not real academically driven at the time. I was sort of projecting into the future always. Just, let me just get this degree and I'm going to go make $1 million. That was sort of my attitude.
Sure.
And I look back on that, that later on, that lack of attention, I think ended up helping me help others pay attention during their college journey. But that was really what was on my mind was making money, and I sort of rushed through college academically, if that makes any sense.
Oh, sure. Hey, I know a lot of kids that rush through college that are millionaires right now.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but it's understandable. I mean, you have a kid and a wife, and you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Type of thing. It's funny though. I always find they say there's reasons for everything, which I kind of believe, and for
yeah.
things happen,
Yes.
and it's how you take those in and what you do with them, etc. And there's always a thread, and you can kind of see the thread already into what you've been doing. We found that our firm, on the premise that leaders and organizations can always do better when they're doing good, and you clearly got to that point where you were creating a culture in what you did aligned with that. And as we both know, sports, as they say, mimics, or it's the same as life, and vice versa. Share with us first how you found yourself in girls and women's basketball, because
Yep.
generally that might not have happened. You might have been
Sure.
coaching baseball for guys or whatever, and how your career evolved into some of the different schools and different coaching positions.
Well, I got out of college, and the person in my small town that was making the most money was in the construction business. So of course I tried to get into the construction business, and I went to work for a contractor trying to learn that business, and I was just miserable. I didn't have a real mathematical mind. I didn't see the angles. I had no talent for construction. So I was with my former high school basketball coach and the leader of our school, Coach Farrell Rigby, there in Louisville, Mississippi, and I was lamenting the fact that I just felt adrift, was not accomplishing much, was not very good at construction. And I was just sort of searching, and I was helping him clean up the football stadium one Friday night after a game. He's the hardest working guy. No job was too small for him. He was just such a great leader. So he said, Matthew, I've always thought you'd make a good coach. So why don't you just come back this year, be my assistant, and see if you like it. And Mark, I stepped on that court the first time as an assistant coach, and it was just like shock waves went through my body. I loved it. I was helping him coach basketball. And so from that moment, I knew that was going to be the path. And I was really freed up by the fact that my parents were such high character and so rooted in principle. They're like, Matthew, don't worry about making money. Don't worry about making money. Just do a job that you're going to wake up every day, and where you can impact people and you can feel good about yourself. There's intrinsic value in a job well done. So just focus on that and don't worry about money, and take care of what money you have, but be responsible, but don't worry about making $1 million. And so I went on this journey of coaching. And so I landed in this little bitty town in Mississippi called Lexington. So I tell people I was destined to be a Kentuckian because I grew up in Louisville, spelled like Louisville. And my first coaching job was in Lexington. And so I was destined to come to Kentucky. But I went to Lexington, a little bitty school, and I coached everything on campus, Mark. Coached football, basketball. I'll coach both boys and girls basketball teams, defensive coordinator on the football team, coached the baseball team, would drive the kids to the golf matches, just everything. And so what I was trying to do, it was such great training for me because I needed to learn how to coach. I knew how to play, but I didn't know how to coach. Mm-hmm. So the way I got into girls basketball is that I wanted to do a great job for my girls, just like my boys. Of course, I fancied myself as, I was going to coach the Lakers. I was going to coach in the NBA. And that was, I went from making $1 million to another high aspiration. I'm going to coach the Lakers with no credentials or anything, to speak of. But that was my dream.
Sure.
But I wanted to do a good job for my girls. So I started working camps in the summer. And that's what led me to, I worked football camps, boys basketball camps, girls basketball camps. So I ended up at the University of Tennessee for the great coach, Pat Summitt. And I worked 4 summers for her. And then that 4th summer, she hired me as her graduate assistant. And that's where I really feel like God was leading me into what he wanted me to do, into women's basketball. And that's, if you went to work for Pat Summitt, that would be like going to work for John Wooden or Mike Krzyzewski. It opened up a lot of doors for me, and it really transformed what was available. And from there, started a very successful women's basketball coaching career on the collegiate level.
So you should be in the WNBA right now.
Well, so maybe so. I'm not. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing now, but you never know where the journey's going to end.
Oh, yeah. Well, that great scholar, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
He once said, once he matured, he was actually brilliant. It took him a couple of years, but he once said, we should all have a dream. It could be the championship, and that's good, or it could be for your business or whatever. You should all have a dream. But what we really have to realize is the dream is actually right now where we are.
Yeah. Right.
And it was so simply brilliant. And
I love it. I love it.
And I think that's kind of a little bit what your parents said in a different way about just concentrate on what you're doing, do the great thing, and then move from there. Can you tell us about maybe what you picked up and selected from coaches? Because I know, having coached myself and just in general, and even players, you pick up different things from different coaches to make yourself better the way you are. Can you tell us about what you picked up from coaches and even others to form your own leadership style? How that evolved as an assistant to a head coach, and then we'll get to something else.
There were really the 4 coaches that I worked for in women's basketball are all in the Hall of Fame. So Pat Summitt, what I learned from her, the biggest thing was one of the great pillar points of discipline is consistency. She was so consistent. She was one of the most popular sports figures. She was on, back when magazines were a thing, she was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. She was on the cover of Time magazine. She was a national figure. and she had a lot of things that could have knocked her off her game and distracted her from coaching championship basketball. But when she hit that floor every day, she was so consistent. That was Pat Summitt. Mickey DeMoss was her top assistant at Kentucky, who I went on to work for at top assistant at Tennessee. She eventually got the Kentucky job and hired me as her assistant before I became the head coach. And I learned preparation from her, how to really go deep. And, people say, no stone left unturned. Like she taught me a master class in preparation. I only thought I was getting prepared, and she taught me preparation.
Right.
Carol Ross, I worked for at Florida. She taught me how to get out of my comfort zone and be more analytical and use data to drive my coaching decisions instead of always going with your gut. Because I love to go, instinct and my gut.
Sure.
And so she taught me the value of data. Just a really, really powerful thing for me when I was developing as a coach. And then Carolyn Peck, who's in the Hall of Fame and national championship coach at Purdue, I worked for her at Florida. And she taught me the power of positivity. She was so positive, and she woke up every day trying to help people move forward and serve people. And I loved learning from all of those four women. And then there were two coaches on the men's side that really impacted me. The first one, I didn't know personally for 30 years, and that was Rick Pitino. My parents gave me a book called Born to Coach
Mm-hmm.
when I was 16 or 17 years old. And Coach Pitino, his style of coaching, the technical side of the game, and the way he got his teams to play, I tried to emulate. And it's been so much fun, though. That journey came full circle. He coached at Kentucky for 8 years, and he built a house that I eventually moved into this past weekend. And so now, since I've become friends with him, and this last weekend, he was in Lexington and came to the house for the first time since 1997. So it's been so much fun getting to know him, but it's a testament to how you can inspire people from afar. You don't even have to know people to make an impact on them with just the quality of your work. And then at Florida, when I was a young coach, his protege, Billy Donovan, who's now the NBA coach at the Chicago Bulls, he welcomed me into his practices. He gave me the gift of his time. He would spend time with me as a young coach. No question was too dumb. No question would go unanswered. He gifted me with the generosity of his time, and I learned so much about basketball and coaching, and I really tried to emulate him in so many ways. So those six coaches along my journey. Now, so many more, but those are the people I'd mentioned.
Damn, we're gonna have a hard time finishing on the influencers later on.
I've got some of those too. So
well, it sounds like those are some. Someone said to me recently, you got to work hard to make it look easy, and I've always known that. The ones I love when people say I'm being sarcastic. Well, I could do that. Well, the reason it looks so easy to do is he's prepared or she's prepared, and as you said, during the regular season, if you're going to do sports analogies or whether it's a business, you're working on the detail and the technique and everything detail by detail. So by the time you get to the playoffs, there's no more thinking. It's like bam, bam, bam. And and it's brilliant. And the playoffs are so tactical and technical and so close. You've got to have that edge to win championships. So I love what you say, about what they brought to the table. It's not by accident that they have winning seasons,
No. If you go back to Coach Summitt's example, the consistency, and you just stack day after day after day over a period of time, that's where you can build your competency, and that comes through experience, and then you are able to convert that into wisdom to inform yourself, but then also share that. All those six people have shared their wisdom with me and have made huge impacts on my life. And so as leaders, I think consistency is so powerful, and I think for a large majority of people, it's underrated. They think, I need to make this happen now, or I need to hit a home run at this at bat. And where Coach Sump, just consistency every day, sticking to your principles, to your values, and just going day after day after day with positive attitude and tenacious spirit can really move people.
So you're in business now. You have this something called Winning Tools, that I guess you're kind of describing already, the Winning Tools, and explain why the Winning Tools do work for sports and business. But also, if you can add to that, you're also creating a culture of winning.
Yes. So what we learn from athletics is, and what I learned in athletics is that if I have a process and I stick to that process and I'm process driven, then I don't have to spend a whole lot of time thinking about my results. They will take care of themselves. The victory will come to you if you stick to the process. So the process is rooted in principle. So our principles are the winning tools. And I love this thought of having tools to build your life and to build your people up in your business. And so the winning tools, the principles are honesty, hard work, and discipline. And so what we do is we teach you in your business how to bring those three principles and get them as grounding forces in your business and with your people. And what that equals is you start working together as a team, and the team starts to function at a championship level. And that's exactly what we did with the basketball team. And so what I found out I was passionate about probably 15, 20 years ago is I'm really passionate about leadership and what that can do for a person's life. And basketball just was my vehicle. I was a leadership coach who coached basketball instead of the other way around. And I love basketball and I love the game, love everything it brought to me. But what I'm extremely excited about now is seeing how these principles and how a process can show up. And even if a business is having some success on the bottom line, Mark, and this is what I've loved since you and I have gotten engaged, and leaders who care falls right into this. Even if you're having success, if you do good and you are honest, hard work, and disciplined, you'll have even more success, but you'll feel great about yourself. Back to what my parents said, there's intrinsic value in doing the job well and being excited about doing the job well. And so we just try to connect people and their teams, high-level leaders, high aspirational organizations that depend on high performance. We like to get them connected to the winning tools, and that will buttress their existing process, and we believe strengthen it. And in the end, it's going to lead to better outcomes for them.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. And Leaders Who Care is not by accident. I've had a lot of leaders who cared about me, like you had with the coaches there and along the way. And I realized that later. And I interviewed an executive at one of the NHL teams years ago, and he said, our goal every year is to win the championship, but we're not naive. It's hard to win a championship every year. Our mandate is to have a winning season every year. Mm-hmm. But that means that, and he was basically describing what we call Leaders Who Care now, someone who understands the value of every individual. And he said, that's not just the players and it's the trainers, it's the secretary in the office, it's the Zamboni driver. The players see these people almost all the time, and there's a culture happening there, and that they care about the well-being of everybody. And he talked about the financial, the physical, the mental well-being, and that it's been proven that that's the thing that brings people together the most. The thing that's the heart and soul of everybody is belonging to that team. So what's your thoughts on how championship leaders like that in sports and business do understand that as part of their strategy, and they ensure that everybody knows they have value, everybody belongs as part of the team? And even if I can go further, and then I'll stop talking, is how it impacts the families and their kids as well.
I think it comes to the word investment. And a leader that cares about their team is going to invest time and is going to invest in development of the people in their organization. And so what I used to tell the players is that the very first winning tool is honesty. And one of the first things that we try and teach, and we do this in business now, is letting everyone know that it's so powerful to be able to be honest with yourself. And so we taught that started with humility. And so a lot of people think humility is I've got to, put myself in the background and I've got to think lower of myself. We said that humility, our definition is an accurate view of yourself. So you have to get really honest with yourself. And that means not only do I have to see what my faults are, and I think a lot of us that have achieved, and I've met so many leaders, were spurred on by this fear of failure, which can get you jump started. I think there's a shelf life on that, and I think it really gets some negative thoughts in your head when you're driven by fear. What we wanted to start with is step forward with what are the gifts you have to contribute to our success. So now once we identify those, you have to be honest with yourself and you have to bring those to the forefront. If a leader will invest the time with their people to have that conversation, now we go around, Mark has gifts, Matthew has gifts, Janet has gifts, Bill has gifts, and we need those to be successful. Also, the accuracy provides you with where you need the other people on the team. Right. So there can only be one leading scorer. There can only be one leading rebounder. The leading scorer gets her name in the press and gets the notoriety. The person who sets the screen to get her open is just as important and is just as responsible for the ball going to the basket. So connecting everyone to their value and connecting everyone to where they need their teammate. And this works beautifully in business because so many times we have a task in business that we just have to accomplish, or we're in accounting, or we're in human resources, or we're in marketing or sales. And a lot of times the salespeople get all of the praise and get all of the glory. They're like the leading scorer. Where if all of these things, if these gifts are not brought to the forefront, and you don't bring these to the forefront, nothing happens. The salespeople can't make the sale. So when a leader will invest in their people and then define these roles, it's just like athletics. We would define the role. I had Ryan Howard is an all-star in the WNBA. She was the #1 pick in the WNBA draft, plays for the Atlanta Dream. When she came to me as a freshman, she is so talented, a great passer, a great rebounder, a great defender, a great scorer. She wanted to get everybody the ball so they could get some points before she started shooting. And I said, Ryan, that's not your value to the team. You must shoot the ball and score the ball because you can do it better than anybody else on the team. So if you don't shoot the ball 20 times a game, then you're in hot water and you're going to have consequences. So that defined her role. So there was no ambiguity. There was no confusion. She knew I better get. So what do you think she did, Mark, coming out? Opening tip. She was gunning. She was going to get her shot attempts. That's what we needed to do. We needed Kiki McKinney to set screens and rebound. We didn't need her to shoot 20 times a game. We needed her to shoot in her range, open shots, but we needed her to do other things. So I think where you can really move your team forward is having those honest conversations and investing time in letting and communicating the value each person has in the organization. And so now that will trickle down. If I have a happy employee that is driven and motivated, that's going to impact them and their families. They're going to generate more. They're going to earn more. They're going to be happier when they go to the house and interact. And so I think that's really where it's what I would say is that word investment is so important in your human capital. Your people is really, really powerful.
Yeah, no, it's super sad. And I've seen so many times We do executive search where the person we placed in the company for says, thanks so much for finding me this opportunity. It was great. And the employer will say the same thing. But then I'll speak to the spouse and say, the kids can't wait till mom or dad comes home and tells them what happened at work, type of thing. And then they see that the person's happy, whether it's their own business or working somewhere else. And the kids hear that, or they hear the opposite. If people come home and say, oh, work sucks, give me a beer, I'm going to watch the game and whatnot. And the kids see that.
Right.
So all this stuff really does make an impact. And I love your analogy about, the team. Most sports fans will understand a lot of that, but the scorer will still get it. But generally, if the score, and I think you said, make yourself a little bit lesser because they're good people. They want to pass to everybody. But if you don't win because of that, that's not going to be good either. And one expression I love is clear is kind. The clearer you are, the kinder you're being to people.
Yes.
And if you're not clear and ambiguous, it ain't going to work.
No, that's one of the great sayings. It is, and it is so true. And that's where the foundation of our leadership platform and our system is honesty. And when you're honest, you can be clear, and clear is kind. I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, that's right on. Well, you know what they say in LA is you got to keep them wanting more so you can do a sequel. So we may have to do a sequel or something. But I do have one last question here.
Yeah.
But one last for this time is a client once told me, it was in 2021, about 2020, the pandemic year. He said it was the year that flew by slowly. And when I heard that, it was true, because sometimes it feels like it was yesterday and sometimes it feels like it was years ago. So here we are, we're in the end of 2024 now. What are you most grateful for with all of this that's happened? And then also, what are you most hopeful for?
Well, I'm so grateful over these last 4 years that sort of in the middle of my career, I had time. What COVID did for me was give me time to reflect and think about I had a daughter, Sailor was getting ready to turn 10. So I was thinking about that 10 years, and I had been so busy, and I had accomplished a lot as a college basketball coach. I was at the top of the profession. But I started looking at that next 10 years, and I just wonder, had I just stayed on the hamster wheel, if I'd have had that gift of time. So I'm so grateful I had that, and I could make this pivot into business leadership and corporate consulting, where I feel like I'm going to impact another set of people and more people, and take everything that I've learned. And I've been so grateful to be pushed out of my comfort zone. There's been a bunch of days, Mark, that I'm like, what in the world have you done here? What are you doing? But I'm grateful for that. And now, as I look forward to the next 10 years, I can look back on everything that I've acquired, and I think I'm just ready to make some impact. And so I'm hopeful for those opportunities where I can do good for people. I can help people increase their leadership, which really, I think, gets to the core of being the very best person you can be. Yeah. And I think there's so much opportunity. I was just in one of your sessions, virtual sessions the other day, and there's so many people out there, Mark, that want to make the world a better place. It's really, really inspiring. And gosh, we hear so much negative news. We hear so much negative information coming our way. And I'm just thankful for spaces like this where we can really bring hope to the forefront, because there's so many exciting things happening in the world that can be done for good and for positive change. And I'm excited and hopeful to be a part of all of that.
Man, you should run for president.
I don't know if I want the job. I don't know who wants it.
That's the problem. Really great people don't want the job.
Right.
Something. Well, hey, I'm grateful to have a new friend, and I'm grateful you're a leader who cares, for sure. I'm grateful for someone I can share sports analogies with and gets it. And I'm hopeful for all the same reasons. So thanks for being on the series. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.